Hello everyone, my name is Zach Richardson, and this is In Retrospect. So this is the first official episode that I am putting on YouTube. I have had other episodes, I've tried to dub them official before, and perhaps they were, but this is a different launch of the podcast In Retrospect, and this is the first time I'm putting it on YouTube. The other episodes I've released, there were 3 episodes on SoundCloud. I've tried a few podcasting projects before, and I haven't really committed to it as much. But for this one, I'm thinking it will be a pretty good time. We're going to try and do 1 episode a week, maybe 20 to 25 minutes per episode, if that, just to see how it goes, to get some experience and see if we can get some people listening, building a fun community with everybody, trying to just get to know me a little bit, and then hopefully have people on the show and see if I can go from here. But it's going to be only audio for a bit. This is a variety show, and the topics are not limited to any one genre right now. Nothing specifically focused, except for certain things will be repeated each week. Like I'm going to have a song of the week and a challenge of the week and things like that. And what you should expect to hear about would be current events, sports, video games, movies, music, entertainment, just a variety of things. And about myself, my name is Zach Richardson, as I said in the intro. I'm 25 years old. I live in Chillicothe, Ohio, about an hour south of central Ohio's capital, Columbus, where everyone's heard of. If they think of Ohio, they typically think of Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton even, Toledo sometimes, but really Columbus. So I grew up there. I live here now, and I am in college right now studying to be a middle school math teacher, and I work in home health as a direct service provider. I am a gigantic Ohio State football fan. I'm a fairly new Cincinnati Bengals fan, so I have not really been much of a professional football fan as far as teams and franchises over the years. I've always loved college football, at least since I started watching it in elementary school, and I've just been a devout Ohio State football fan. My dad went to school there. He graduated from there, and he's just a devout fan, so he just spread that excitement to me. But with the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow getting drafted there, a guy from Athens, Ohio. I have a lot of family from Athens, Ohio, Southeast Ohio, with all the poverty, like what Joe talked about in his Heisman Trophy accepted speech. It's a good excuse to like the Bengals, but I'd actually went to my first NFL game last year, and it was the Bengals. I was trying to be a Cleveland Browns fan. I'm still rooting for the Browns. I still want them to do well. I wasn't one of those Bengals fans that grew up rooting for the Bengals, so I don't really have a hatred towards specific NFL teams. I'm more of a player-focused professional sports person. Like with the NBA, I've liked the NBA for a little while, and I've always liked players more than franchises. But I've been trying to shift that gear. I've been very team faithful in college football, but that was the only sport that I've ever really been that team faithful. And so that's interesting. But anyway, now I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. I think it's a fun time to hop on the bandwagon if you want to, even though they got the first overall pick, and even if you're an LSU fan jumping on the bandwagon, I cannot blame you. There's something magnetic about Joe Burrow that he just brings to a franchise and a football team, and it's something that you want to be a part of. And even if he ends up not panning out that well, he's done really well these first 3 games, and he's playing really hard, and he just has a chip on his shoulder no matter what he's achieved and what success he has. And so it's just an exciting time. Whether they end up making it with him or not doesn't really matter so much to me. I think it's just a proximity thing for me. Columbus, Ohio is closer than Cincinnati for me, but they don't really have professional sports up there besides hockey, and I'm trying to get into hockey as well, but that has been a slow process. But I know that the Blue Jackets are doing very well in Columbus right now, at least as far as making it to the playoffs and competing consistently. They're not winning championships, but they have been losing to champions in the playoffs, so that's not necessarily a bad place to be right now. But yep, I am a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. That was pretty new for me. I grew up not really liking the Cavs that much because I was just a hater. In general, when it comes to the most popular trends and the most popular ideas, I was a hater for a long time. I just wanted to be different than mainstream, different than popular. And now I've realized why it's so widespread in its popularity, a lot of mainstream things. But anyway, I am a Cavs fan for sure, and I'm a PC gamer. I do play video games, a lot of video games. I spend a lot of time on Discord with my friends. I'm just an average guy, just trying to have conversations, just trying to stir the pot a little bit, whether that's in a positive or negative way, or bring awareness to certain things that I'm passionate about. I just want to share my opinion with you all, and I'm excited to do that. And so if you guys are listening to this and you're thinking if there's anything else you would like to know about me, or if there's any other opinions that you want to immediately ask about before I address it in a show, or if I even address it in a show, just make sure to do that. I'd be glad to answer your comments. I'm sure when I post this to YouTube, there won't really be a large following, and that's going to take some time to build, but I just want to build some experience and hopefully have a entertaining show for you all and just have a great time. And so today we're going to be talking about just two things, nothing much. I figured I will be able to talk about these subjects for quite some time, and I don't want to take up too much time on this first episode. Just want to give you guys a little tidbit of things to think about, what you think about these conversations for yourself, and if it affects you personally or not, or if you are hearing about these things in detail, at least what I would consider a slight detail for the first time, maybe it will open a new door for you. But we're going to be talking about the unfortunate news of Eddie Van Halen passing today at the age of 65, and we're also going to be talking about the NBA Finals. The Game 4 plays tonight. It's going to be a very big game, and we're just going to talk about those two things really, and have a song of the week and a challenge of the week. And so we'll hop into this. And so, yes, I did say, I just heard a few hours ago that Edward Van Halen, guitarist for the popular rock band Van Halen, has passed tragically today from cancer, and he'd been battling cancer for some time. And it's still a bit of a shock. I've seen some reactions online. I've talked about it with my dad a little bit. He was quite the influence for guitarists, musicians all over the world, and he was an excellent player, and he played for an excellent band, and it just worked out. Some guys are excellent guitar players, some guys are really good musicians, and the bands they play in are really good in their own unique way, but they might not be recognized on the same level as the players themselves. But in this instance, the band Van Halen, and a lot of their success, some people would argue, depending on who you ask, all of the success rode on the strings of Eddie Van Halen's guitar. And it's just unfortunate that he's gone, but just want to bring a little positive light today, try and celebrate life, just be thankful for their music. I am thankful for their music. I appreciate the amount of time I've spent listening to that band. So I just have some quick facts I want to talk about Van Halen if you haven't listened to the band before, or maybe you've heard of them before, but you haven't really listened to them. So they're a rock and roll band that started in 1972, and they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. They're one of my favorite rock bands. It's one of those things with those guys where you've heard probably quite a few of their songs, but you might not know the name of it until someone shows it to you. But you have heard it, I'm sure. Like a lot of the ones that people have heard is Jump. They're really well known for Jump. Another one that they're really well known for is Panama. And a lot of rock and roll kids out there, and parents and kids of the parents, they have probably heard of Eruption, or at least they've heard the song. And it was the iconic tapping solo and just almost a 2-minute, sounds like a jam session really. And it's just Eddie Van Halen flexing his guitar acumen in the late 70s and just doing things that had been done before, perhaps, but not on that scale, and they were not owned by someone. They weren't really a part of their brand specifically. I had heard of guitarists doing tapping, but it wasn't really, I don't know, it wasn't something you heard widespread across rock and roll music until Van Halen. And so Eddie Van Halen was one of those guys that really drove that movement and drove that specific style of guitar playing. And now, based off of just how many people were influenced by that tapping specifically, a lot of people that like rock and roll are very familiar with listening to a lot of guitar, electric guitar-based music, even acoustic guitar. They hear the tapping and they're thinking, well, that's impressive, but I've heard that a lot. Well, when Eddie Van Halen was doing it in the 70s, not a lot of people had heard that before. Maybe not ever. And so he was a big pioneer in the guitar field for making the stringed instrument make noises that a lot of people didn't think was possible. and maybe a lot of players even to this day can't quite get to. But he set an amazing standard and precedent for guitar players to aspire to be like and play at his skill level, but not just play at his level. If you're a musician, you kind of know what I'm saying. I'm not a huge big-time musician, but I play drums, and I have a history of playing drums, and I'm not a very good drummer, not an advanced drummer, but I've just spent a lot of time listening and talking to drummers. Like, my best friend plays drums, and he's an excellent player. Another one of my good friends plays, and I have other friends that are just excellent at other instruments, and I've just asked them a lot of questions over the years and just made observations and opinions on my own. But what I was getting to was, you can have excellent musicians and instrumentalists that can play their music very well, and they can play other people's music. I should say they play other people's music, and they have a high skill level, and they could play a lot of things that you throw at them if you gave them time to practice. But what really sets the legends apart from the shredheads of today, in my opinion, is the ability to write, and it doesn't have to necessarily be complex, but effective. And a lot of the guitar licks that were written in solos were very iconic from the old rock and roll days. And yeah, there's players out there today that are arguably just as good, if not better, than the old guys. But as far as respecting the classics, I'm one of those big advocates for respecting the classics. It just needs to be done. They paved the way for all these shredheads to come out today, and you can go on YouTube and see some guys play Eruption, and a lot of people in the comments are saying this is awesome, or I've heard this before, this guy didn't do it as good, or I know someone that's better, this is overrated or something. And people are entitled to their opinion, but what I would say is that without that, there are a lot of foundational pieces missing from progressive guitar playing without guys like Eddie Van Halen paving the way. And so I just wanted to give homage to him today. And some history for me, just as a fan listening to them, I really listened to, I still listen to quite often, their music from 1984, the album 1984, which was released in 1984, the last album with lead singer David Lee Roth. I've listened to a lot of the music from that album and earlier, so their earlier albums. So some people call Van Halen, or they call it Van Hagar, and that might be a derogatory term, it might not be, but essentially it's Van Halen was one style, unique style, not that it wasn't unique with their next singer, but I'll get to that. So they played a specific way, and they had a specific style of singing and songwriting. It felt like that was being used in a way that was popular in the late 1970s and the early 1980s. The Van Halen was just coming out. They're going to rock your face off. They're going to shred the guitar. It's going to be incredible. You're going to have some high vocals from David Lee Roth, the singer, almost like a scream, but it wasn't a heavy metal. At the time, I'm sure it was considered heavier, and I still consider it fairly heavy. But what I would consider today's heavy is very different than what they were doing back then. But anyway, just a recognizable brand that they had. And then David Lee Roth was out of the band, and then they brought in a new guy, Sammy Hagar. He was another big musician at the time in the early 80s, and he came on and he sang for Van Halen for quite a few years. And so fans call Van Halen or Van Hagar, which do you prefer? I have listened to more of the Van Halen instead of the Van Hagar, and I'm not trying to be offensive, I'm just using that for lack of better phrases. I'm not the most diehard Van Halen fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I have always been a huge Eddie Van Halen fan. I remember being a kid watching YouTube, so I'm 25, born in 95. I remember sitting and watching YouTube when YouTube was really coming up when I was in elementary, well, not really elementary, when I was in middle school, high school, and early college, just spending time watching these videos of these artists playing live sessions that I'd never seen. And I wasn't around for that. And so what's cool about YouTube is that it's given us the opportunity, just as not necessarily just for content creators, but for fans and just admirers who want to see things that they wouldn't have seen otherwise. You could see a lot of this live footage of Eddie Van Halen playing his guitar sessions and playing guitar solos, but with YouTube, a lot of people were clipping the video footage and giving you essentially the highlights or a specific song, and obviously not owning the rights to it, but just saying, hey, this is some of Van Halen's best stuff, this is some of Eddie Van Halen's best stuff, it's from a specific moment, this specific show, this specific song. So just things like that I would spend time watching, and that's where I grew to be quite the large fan of Eddie Van Halen as a guitar player. I personally don't play electric guitar or acoustic guitar. I've played some bass, and what I mean by some, I mean barely any. And so I know how bass is, for me, trying to learn guitar versus trying to learn bass. Bass is just easier because I'm playing single notes most of the time instead of playing chords and learning different things like that. You could, in my experience, I don't know where the notes are. I don't know much about the bass guitar at all, but I can recognize the sound when I play the string, pluck the string, slap the bass on a certain note, if you will. But there's not that much to it in comparison to maybe writing lead melodies with a guitar. And you can write leads with a bass, but that's not the discussion I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is I know that it's not easy to progress when you're playing an instrument brand new for the first time. And I'm imagining when Eddie Van Halen was a kiddo, it was hard for him coming up. He had influences that inspired him to play the way he wanted to play, but at the same time, he had a specific art style and a specific vision in his head, and he just was able to share that through his instrument, and that's the mark of a true artist and a true signature artist. And so he's just awesome. He's just awesome, and it's really unfortunate that he's gone, but I'm just so thankful that I have gotten to listen to their stuff, and I just got to feel the excitement. I heard about Van Halen from my dad. He was born in an era where he got to grow up, and when he was a teenager and a young adult, he was getting to see a lot of the rock and roll come to exist. And so that's really cool. But he's been a Van Halen fan for years. He likes Van Halen, Van Hagar, all of the above. He's a really solid Van Halen fan, and that excitement, he just showed it to me. All he did was buy a greatest hits CD when I was a kiddo, and I just remember being in the car with him listening to that. Even if it was just a 20-minute road trip, we're going to sit and listen to it, and I'm going to like it, and it's going to be fantastic. So that's where the excitement came from, and then I learned at a later age, just a few years ago, that I have the same birthday as Eddie Van Halen. So that was always something that's kind of cool. Finding that you have the birthday of someone that's famous just kind of makes a surface level, base level connection with that person. I never saw them live. I never met him in person. I don't know him. I never knew him. I don't know his family. But because we have the same birthday, there's just a level of, oh, I'm a bigger fan just because of that fact. So that's cool. But yeah, I definitely just wanted to point some happiness that way. And I have the song of the week that I'm going to say today. The song of the week today, especially because of what's happened, is Dreams by Van Halen. I would encourage you all to listen to that. I've already listened to it a few times today. I love that song. I remember hearing this song at the end of the Power Rangers the movie that came out the year I was born in 1995. And I don't remember knowing what it was called, but I remember hearing it. And when I had that greatest hits CD, I remember hearing it and thinking, this was familiar. And my older brother, I remember him saying, oh yeah, I love that song because it's at the end of the Power Rangers movie. And he's 3.5 years older than me. And not 3.5, but he's 3 years older than me. Anyway, he just said his excitement for Power Rangers, and I thought, oh, well, that makes sense. I like that movie. I remember that as a child. I was a teenager when he said this. He reminded me that it was in the end of the movie. And I thought, yeah, that's another reason for me to like it. It's just a well-written song. It has a positive feel to it. It rocks. It's old school. It was on their album from 1986 with Van Hagar. It's Sammy Hagar was the singer. I keep saying Van Hagar. But anyway, that's the song of the week. Definitely listen to it at least once. I promise you won't be let down. Even if you're not into the older style of music that was being played in the 80s, if you really listen to it closely, and especially you hear the synthesizer and you hear the keys, you recognize that lately, within the last few years, specifically this year and the year before, it feels like pop music has shifted more towards synthesizers once again, and we're starting to get, especially with The Weeknd, he comes to mind, you get that vintage feel. You get the time signatures and you get the beat and the rhythm that feels similar to an 80s pop song, a 1980s pop song, but it's not the same. It just reminds you of it. And so when you hear this and you hear those keys, you could easily redub that and change some of the notes and plug it into a song like today, and I'm sure the song would be immensely popular. So definitely listen to that. Just wanted to say one more time, rock on, Eddie Van Halen, you're gone, but your music will never die, and your influence will never die. Just wanted to say thank you as a fan. Just wanted to shout out Van Halen. They've been on hiatus for a little while, and I'm sure that they would be done for certain now, unless they start playing again in memory of Eddie. that's up to them. Like, I wouldn't be against it. I'm not necessarily for it or against it. I'm just kind of, whatever they decide to do is fine. But it's exciting that they have the body of work that they have, and they're in the Hall of Fame, and Eddie is just a gigantic part of that. Just excited. And shifting towards the NBA Finals, Game 4. So it's going to be quite the subject change, but that's how this show is going to really flow. Yes, that was a current event. It just so happened to be about music, and it was about music history. A history lesson never hurts. But anyway, now we're switching to sports, current event sports. Game 4 of the NBA Finals plays tonight. The Los Angeles Lakers lead the Miami Heat 2-1 down in the Orlando bubble. LeBron James and Anthony Davis are averaging 27 points per game, and they are teammates for the Lakers, in case you're unfamiliar. Jimmy Butler, the best player on the Miami Heat, is averaging 29 points per game, and he just came off of a gigantic, historical game in Game 3, but we'll get to that. And Heat standout, one of their better players, Bam Adebayo, is expected to return for tonight's game. That would be huge for the Miami Heat because they've really been shorthanded this whole series. They've just been struggling with injuries. This Heat team reminds me of a better version of the 2015 Cleveland Cavaliers that lost to the Golden State Warriors in 6 games, where Kevin Love was out, Kyrie Irving played in Game 1, and then he was out, and LeBron James basically had to be a superhero just to carry them to 6 games. This Miami Heat team is better than they were, in my opinion, just because they can shoot the ball better, and they play better defense. And they're playing tougher competition than that Cleveland team did. That Cleveland team lost to a good Golden State team. But if everyone really remembers and knows their basketball, they would know that the Golden State team that won 73 games the next season was made up of a lot of those guys from the year before, but they really had clicked that next year, even though they blew a 3-1 lead against the Cavs, and they ended up losing that final series. That team was much better than the team that ended up beating Cleveland the year before. And then, as you know, the Warriors got Kevin Durant, and everything's history now. But we are where we are. It's just this Heat team really, really reminds me of those Cleveland teams. Just playing very hard and playing with a lot of emotion, where the Lakers, they seem to be on a mission, and they're trying to destroy everything in their path, and they've been the favorite, and they have the most talent, and some people would argue otherwise. I think this Lakers team, even when they've played their worst basketball in these playoffs, they have still cruised through all the rounds that they went through. Yeah, they were hard fought, they were close games, but they went only to 5 games in all of their series. And so this series has the chance to do that. If the Los Angeles Lakers win tonight, they will be up 3-1. And so people make the 3-1 jokes ever since Cleveland came back from their deficit in the finals for the first time ever. A 3-1 finals deficit. They came back to win the series against Golden State in 2016. That was exciting. Woo! Gotta shout out my Cavs every time I can. They're gone now, so I'm always gonna take time to recognize the Cleveland Cavaliers. Plus, LeBron plays for the Lakers, and so you can't separate LeBron from the Cavs because of just his contributions to that team. Plus, just that's been recent too. It's been recent history that was made, so that was pretty cool. But anyways, this series could be 3-1 in favor of the Lakers, and Miami has what it takes to be another historic team to come back from a 3-1 deficit, but it's going to be tough. So they really need to even this series out tonight. We'll get to predictions later, but just for each team, so we're going to talk about the Miami Heat now. Jimmy Butler, the biggest question is Jimmy Butler. How is he going to respond to his own legendary performance? Is he going to go out there and play like a madman again? Is he going... I think he can do it, and I think he will do it. It's just, will that be enough? And Bam Adebayo has really not done this series what he had been doing throughout the playoffs, and that's just being a scoring machine for them in the post and playing good defense and getting rebounds and just a physical player. But he's been struggling with Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a handful. He's an excellent, excellent player. He's one of the best players in the world, and people try to have hot takes and try to garner attention to themselves by trying to say Anthony Davis is in the top 3 of best players in the world at basketball. Whether that's true or not really doesn't matter because his play speaks for itself. He just goes out there and plays insanely tough basketball. And so the counter to that has to be Bam Adebayo. And he has to do his thing. Otherwise, the Miami Heat can count themselves out of this one because Those Lakers are just insane. But Miami, like I said, has the pieces to do it. They got to make shots. They got to keep moving the ball. They need to just make it through this one. This is one of those games that I would say it's a must-win. Technically, every game is a must-win in the finals because it's a championship or not. But I would say tonight is really, really a big game for the Miami Heat. If they can hang on and even up the series at 2-2, they can stay out of foul trouble. They can make their shots. They can move the ball, play good defense, play smart defense, play to their tempo, play their style of basketball, and they can somehow pull off a win tonight. That would be monumental. And this series could go 7 games if it's evened out. If the Lakers win tonight, I think it's going to end in 5. I think if the Lakers win tonight, they win the series. And that might be a hot take. It might not. Maybe the Heat win tonight and then the Lakers just rattle off 2 more after that. But I don't see that happening. If it either, for me in my mind, has to be the Lakers are going to win because of tonight, or they're going to struggle. And then I still think the Lakers are the favorite to win, but I think it's huge if the Miami Heat can pull it off tonight. And so for the Lakers, what they need, some of their keys to the game, they need LeBron's leadership just to shine through. He has to do what he's been doing. His stats are always going to be there. And as a Cleveland fan, you could see where even though his stats were there for us, sometimes the eye test was different. You felt like either he was a little slow for the night, or he wasn't hitting as much as he does, or he's missing makeable shots. Everyone goes through those nights, but LeBron, usually in clinching games, he typically has to, I shouldn't say typically, but a lot of times in his career, he's had to either come from behind, or he's had to play with his back against the wall facing elimination, or just these pivotal game 4s. Like he plays really big in pivotal games, and so he just has to do that again tonight. He's been playing great all series, but he has to pull off a Jimmy Butler style performance. Jimmy Butler in game 3 with his 40-point triple-double, which is just absolutely unbelievable. I haven't sat to watch as much as I would like, but I have been reading articles and listening on the radio a little bit, and it's been the momentum has been swinging a lot, but from the sounds of it, from the way it seems, clearly the series indicates that Los Angeles holds all the momentum. I mean, all the games have been double-digit wins, and 2 games have went to the Lakers, and 1 has went to the Heat. But anyway, back to the Lakers. They need Anthony Davis to just be the killer that he is. He made some tough shots this playoffs, and he had a buzzer beater, and he's just been making big plays down the stretch, and he's been their go-to guy, and he hits his free throws. He's a better free throw shooter than LeBron. A lot of people criticize LeBron for him taking late game shots or not. He's definitely taken very many of those in his career, and he's hit a lot of them as well. And so LeBron or Anthony Davis taking your last shot at the end of the game is not a bad option by any stretch, but it does seem that Anthony Davis is taking on more of that Mamba mentality, like a Kobe Bryant style, just give me the ball and get out of the way type of attitude. Where LeBron James, you can get that. LeBron Davis. They have so many alley-oops, they might as well be connected like that. LeBron James can do that, and he can take over the game, but he's more of a driver and finisher, and he can weave his way through traffic, and he's had some game winners on layups, and he's had some tough fadeaways and floaters for the win. But with Anthony Davis, you can tell he'll really square up and chuck the ball. And so they just need him to hit some jump shots tonight. They need to get him in the post, draw some fouls, put Bam Adebayo on the bench again. But their biggest thing, I think, for the Lakers, if they really want to win this game, they got to keep hitting threes. That's just common sense. Everyone would say, well, of course you have to make threes to win. But with the Lakers, when they shoot well, they are almost impossible to stop. They just have such a good inside-out game. They have Dwight Howard coming off the bench, JaVale McGee playing well. That's why I said bench. JaVale McGee playing well when he's been in there. They've just had excellent teamwork and cohesive defense, and they've just been playing chippy. And you see that on a lot of the teams LeBron has been winning championships on, and this Lakers team has a chip on their shoulder, and they've been playing tough, and they just want to establish themselves as the preeminent franchise in the NBA as far as an all-time standpoint. And so they can do that. And Kuzma, I think Kyle Kuzma needs a shout-out. He's not quite the player that everyone was hoping he would be, but he's still making big plays, and his contributions shouldn't go as unnoticed as they have. And so here's my predictions for the game. So I believe that the Lakers are going to defeat this Heat team, go up 3-1. I am a fan of just seeing series go, and I'm trying to think who I would want to win this series, and deep down, I think I would want the Heat to win this series. I admit, like I said earlier, I've been kind of a hater at times. Like, I love LeBron's success, and I love his ability to play the game of basketball, and I love what he brings on and off the court. It's just, I'm one of those people that hear how much praise he gets, which is justified because he is so very good, but I'm one of those people that I like to root for the underdog. I like to root for other guys to get their bread. And as much as I want LeBron to rack up the championships and just submit his case for the greatest of all time and just compare his resume to Michael Jordan's or other guys like Kareem and Wilt Chamberlain and those guys, I like this Heat team. I do. I can't help but since I don't have a dog in the fight, I just would rather root for the underdog. And so I'm rooting for the Heat, but I think the Lakers are going to go up 3-1 tonight. My score prediction, I believe the Lakers are going to win 121, Miami 110. And I also have two claims that I think are going to happen. LeBron is going to hit at least 3 3-pointers tonight. And I say Jimmy Butler goes for at least 30. And so those are some of my takes. And the episode has gone a little bit longer than I thought, but that's okay. We'll fine tune it. Like I said, this is the first one that I'm putting to YouTube, and whether if anyone listens to this or not, this is really mostly for me at this point, trying to build my comfortability, build my personality, and just show you guys who I am on the air. And so I'm just thankful for anyone that stuck around and listened. I really appreciate you hanging in there. It's not a perfect craft at this time, but hopefully we can figure things out. And so, about to finish out with the challenge of the week. This is for me as well. This is for all of us. My challenge for the week is to get outdoors for at least 15 minutes to enjoy the fall weather. And so I hope to give you guys another episode a week from today, sometime next week, hopefully just exactly a week from today. Today is Tuesday, and so we will try to get that ready. I will try to get that ready for you. It's just going to be audio, trying to have just a photo, nothing fancy, no background music just yet. This is just a project in the works, but we are trying to start. And so I'm just thankful for you guys being here listening. And like I said, challenge, I'll just say it one more time, get outside for at least 15 minutes. It's really mostly for me. I know you guys will do that. You probably already do, but for me, I struggle getting outside. I just love being inside so much. I just love my computer. I love my television. I love my cell phone. I love laying down. I love sitting down. I am an inside person, and I'm a redhead, so I don't really need to go outside as much as other people. I can get my sunlight for about 20 minutes and say, hey, I'm good for the rest of the day. But I do need to get outside, enjoy life a little. It is fall. It's the best time of the year, even though college football for the Big Ten hasn't started back up yet. It is a wonderful time to be alive, even though we're going through coronavirus and things have been really hard this year, and a lot of people in America talking about the presidential election. Just lots of tough things going on in your life right now, in my life, going through college and everything. But let's just get outside. Let's get outside, get away from it, go on a walk. Just 15 minutes. That's not very long. Think of all the time you spend in the bathroom getting ready. Think of all the time that I spend thinking about getting ready and not getting ready, but then actually finally getting ready. So it's really not so bad. That is the challenge for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will not really give a preview for next episode. We're just going to feel it out episode by episode. I think this has went really well. Give your feedback in the comment section below if you've listened to this, or just give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll see where this thing goes. And today is Tuesday, and I will definitely try to have another episode on YouTube next Tuesday. This is Z, signing off.